when people impersonate me, they like straight up do a caricature. Like every
Yeah,
time
but that's
like that's
okay,
how
but
they
that's
always
what
do it.
impersonations are. Like you have to be dramatic in order to get the point, you know?
I know.
Like no one impersonates someone like Mello.
They should know how to make fun of them. Because I do.
Just know that before we press record on all of these, we are doing student impersonations and no one is saying. Hi friends, welcome to TikTok Theology, a podcast that tackles the major trending topics on social media that concern the Christian faith. I'm Megan.
And I'm Steven. We are here for part 2 of contemporary versus liturgical worship.
Yes.
The last conversation was super interesting.
So good.
We have my good friend Chris E.W. Green.
Nice. Those are important.
E.W. It's in all of his stuff. Nobody ever says it. Call him Chris. We should start calling him just E.W.
We should be like, E.W.? Actually, I hear you and I see you and I raise you, E.W.
Chris E.W. But yeah, so he's a good friend of mine. Now he's a friend of yours.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Obviously.
But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into the second half of this conversation.
Let's go. I think what we've established in these conversations is that, one, there's probably a million sub-definitions that Pentecostals / lots of folks have for what worship really is, and thoughts about the life lived in worship to the Lord. So I think that kind of leads us into this question of what are the biblical and historical bases for your preferred style of worship? Let's us understand where we're all coming from on a way that's biblical and theological. I think will help add some parameters to what we're talking about when we're defining something like worship.
Yeah, so now all of that stuff we've been dancing around about expression, like it comes home right here, so like if you're asking me personally, what do I enjoy most? I think that ends up changing over time. And I don't think I think I can feel at home in a lot of different spaces. So for instance, this summer I was able to spend a week or so on Iona, and we were there on a retreat with Father John Baer and Rowan Williams and a couple of others. And so every morning we were doing morning Eucharist. Rowan Williams was leading us, so it's kind of that familiar high church style. And we were doing evening prayer in the Anglican tradition with the BCP. But then on one of those days, we were able to attend an Orthodox service. There's a monastery there on Mull, not far from Iona, and they came over and led us through the liturgy, the Orthodox liturgy. And that was beautiful too, and entirely different, right? Like markedly different. So it's interesting, like if you haven't experienced all of those things or haven't read them closely, and you attend, kind of typical non-denominational megachurch worship service, you might classify both of those things as high church. But I would argue that they're more different from each other than one of them is from what we think of as an ordinary church service, if we're in that kind of typical evangelical space. So like one of the things that I would want to insist upon is that the differences are very real, and they're much more profound than we realize. Mm-hmm. You would have to inhabit it long enough to really understand it, to appreciate how different the differences really are, right?
Yeah.
And I can feel at home in a lot of those spaces, including, coming to your house church and somebody being on a guitar, say Stephen's on his guitar, leading us in a praise song. Like I'm going to feel right at home there. Or if I step into an old school Pentecostal church, like in the same way, I feel the same way about food, right? If you ask me what's my favorite food, there's no answer to that question. I like good food, right? And almost certainly, if I'm with a friend and they're like, hey, you should try this, I'm going to try it. Like there's very, very little that I wouldn't try at least once if a friend said, hey, I think you should, right? So I think at that level, I just happen to have a pretty diverse palette, I guess is what we should say. But as a pastor and as a theologian, I would say that a crucial aspect of worship is that we don't get to determine what it is, right? So back to the point about obeying the first commandment, worship the Lord. Deuteronomy 12 tells Israel, do not worship the way you want to. Worship the way I tell you to. at the place I tell you, at the time I tell you. And I think that while I'm open to all of these expressions, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, like I'm pretty much at home in any of those spaces. I think we also have to have the conversation about what do we get to decide about and what do we not get to decide about? Like how
Yeah.
much do we get to determine the expression and how much is, in a sense, out of our hands? I think that's a really critical question and one that we have to engage in honestly, not just the three of us, but I mean anyone who's interested in this conversation has to really come to terms with, is it worship if it's just expression?
Yeah.
So like notice Stephen has said over and over again, encounter with God. But the reason I stumble over the word expression is that I think for a lot of people, worship is a right to express what they feel about God.
Hmm.
And I'm going to try to be as clear as I can. I love that. I think people should express what they feel about God.
Yeah.
But if you call that worship, that's not response to a commandment. It's not obedience. It's not the yielding of your life. It's just you giving what you want to give.
That's good.
And I do think we have to name that aspect, that worship is, first of all, what God requires of me, what the truth and what goodness and what beauty require of me, not my right to express how that makes me feel.
Yeah.
Right. And that's with me saying, I'm wide open. Like you express what you want to express, and I'll probably enjoy it. Right. But I don't think that is worship. I think that's more a response to worship or an outworking of worship.
Yeah.
So not only do we need to think about all of life as worship, I think fundamentally we need to think about worship as what is required of us by the nearness of God. When that encounter happens, it puts a claim on us. And our response to that claim is what we mean by worship.
Yeah.
Some aspect of that can be, here's my heart. God, I'm full of joy, or I'm deeply sorrowful, or I'm afraid, or I'm delighted. And it might look like song or dance or tears or tongues or whatever. Again, I think there's no limit to what that range of expression can be. I just don't want to reduce worship to that. And I don't want to then, by having reduced it to that, make it seem like at the end of the day, worship is a matter of private taste. And you should go to the church where you get to do what you want to do. Because then I think you're not responding to the claim of a living God you've encountered.
Yeah.
Right? You're just doing faith the way you prefer to do it.
Yeah.
And like that to me, like there's a hard and fast difference there that somehow has to be named.
That's really good. Yeah, that is I think also implicitly believed by a ton of Pentecostals, and this
absolutely.
is
I think that's my Pentecostalism talking right there. Absolutely.
But this is also like a super American way of doing anything, or just Western way of doing anything. That's radical individualism, or where you have the choice, you have the ability to choose how and determine the elements that you're going to bring to God and how you want to do that and stuff like that. When worship is rightly understood, just as you said, it's a sacrifice, it's a response. God initiates that conversation. You know what I mean? And we respond in ways that are they're going to be holy and honoring of God, and not the other way. And so, yeah, very, very beautifully stated. And you see, Meagan, why I like working with this guy. He's I say it all the time. He's like a Pentecostal mystic. You know what I mean? A mystical theologian. Like I love that. Speaks with profundity and poetry and stuff.
Well, I don't know about any of that, but I do think this is. I was just talking with some students about this, some doctoral students and I think this story will kind of illustrate where I'm coming from about as well as I can. So Ezekiel is in Babylon. The book of Ezekiel opens, Ezekiel's in Babylon with the captives. He's by the river. And suddenly he has this vision, and the throne of God has descended to riverside. And, in the midst of the throne, he sees one like the Son of Man. He has this, the vision of God. He sees God. And what's striking about it, right, is that he's far from Jerusalem. He's a priest. But he's far from Jerusalem. He's far from the temple. He's far from the Holy of Holies. It's not the right place or the right time for the presence of God to be encountered. But the Lord moves on this chariot. Right? The presence of God is living. and
Yeah.
it arrives in this unexpected place.
Mm.
And I think this is the mystic side of me that Stephen was just naming. Like, God can be anywhere, anytime, and is everywhere all the time, being all that God is. Right? Like this, what we mean when we say God is omnipresent is that his potency, the power of his life is present to all creation at all times
Yeah.
without reserve.
Mhm.
But God's name is not everywhere. Not yet. It will be, and God's glory, therefore, is not praised everywhere. Not yet. It will
Mhm.
be. So what's happened is Ezekiel is a priest who's been formed and trained in the language of worship.
Yeah.
He learned the architecture of the temple, and he's familiar with the vestments and the smells of sacrifice and incense. He he has all of that language at his disposal. So
Yeah.
when he sees this unexpected arrival of presence, he can recognize it and he can talk about it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think that some of what we need is to recognize that there are ways in which God can act in our lives that are far beyond religion, far beyond liturgy, far beyond any human expression.
Hmm.
But we could never share that with anyone. Like that would be like Paul, caught up into the third heaven. I can't talk about it. Like I don't know if I was alive or dead. I don't know what to say about it because it's truly beyond
Yeah.
all we can ask or think. What we have in liturgy and traditional worship is we have a set of terms and practices. We have ways of being with the holy that allow us to put words to what it is we're encountering.
Yeah.
And one of the things that worries me about kind of American individualist expressive worship is that it is so focused on presence, which I don't deny. I'm not denying that God is present there and active. God's everywhere and always potent. And I don't doubt the authenticity of their response to it. How could we not love and be moved by this God who made us and loves us?
Mhm.
The question is, how long will we still have the language we need to recognize that for what it is, to know which God it is that's showing up and what this God wants from us, and then how to form communities over time, like over long stretches of time, centuries,
Yeah.
to be faithful to this calling, right? And this is why I think you've got like Moses and Aaron. Like when you think about Moses, you don't think about vestments, you don't think about an office. He's the deliverer of Israel. He has a staff, and that's about it, right? He's the man of God who is the deliverer of Israel, and that's not
Yeah.
replicable. No one else is Moses.
Right.
But Aaron is a high priest. He has an office. He has vestments. He has rules for the way he is to conduct his work, and that gets passed down. And all that that's doing is helping people respond to this God that Moses knows and is speaking of. And
Yeah.
I think that a lot of us want Moses without Aaron,
Mm.
right? We want Ezekiel's vision in Babylon, but we don't want all the training that he had that enabled him to see it and speak about it.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying, let's keep it all. Like we need it all. Like that's what
Yeah.
I'm contending for.
That's great.
That's really good. I feel like you blended the two questions together, the questions that kind of come next to, because
Yes.
I want to respond to that, but then I also want to say the thing that we say. So I'm going to
Yeah.
respond to them in kind of a reversal
Good.
because I think you're actually pointing out something I think that is actually really, really crucial. And I think we both know this. We've both written about it. There is a sense of revivalism that is present in Pentecostalism. What is the heartbeat of revivalism? It is getting saved, being transformed in an instance, in a moment, having a crisis event. And the issue is some people need that crisis event. But I
Yes.
think what happened with you as a young man is they were trying to replicate the crisis event every single
Yes.
week.
Absolutely right. Multiple
And
times a week. Yes.
multiple times a week, right? Right. And
Yes,
then and then
exactly.
it can start feeling like a manufactured
Yes.
crisis that you're manufacturing crisis. Um, but I also think that speaks when we start talking about global Pentecostalism, it speaks there because some people are perpetually in crisis. And so there is this perpetual like deliverance from crisis event that needs to take place over and over again. They could be in a crisis of an economic crisis or a governmental crisis or anything like that. This is why theologies of abundance, sometimes prosperity gospels, take on a completely different flavor in different parts of the world than they would in the extremely affluent West when we actually don't need it. We should be more mature beyond that. We should be the ones that are givers when we have so much. We should be the blessing when we are blessed. And this is something that we will say and speak. And but my point is, there's a whole bunch of people in the world that need Moses.
Yes.
And I think I will agree here because I think it's a both and. I think they're both like legitimate, beautiful, traditions and how they do worship. I think function differently in the community. But something the Reformed tradition will do, and that I noticed so much because How to Worship for All It's Worth. I went and visited various different traditions, and it was very evident with the Reformed tradition. But they have a hundreds-year-old community, right? So like they're Christians, their parents were Christians, their grandparents, great grandparents, and keep going were Christians. And of course people can rebel and then have a dramatic coming back to or just going away from. But there is this sense of like this notion of Christendom that some people have romanticized in the past, right? Like that is present there. Whereas if you go to Southern LA or Southern California in LA, where we're at, you have a lot more people that like it's a very pluralistic society. We have a lot of different like immigrant communities. It's not like everybody's part of like one family with like a long lineage and stuff like that. And there's different encounters with different people, and then there's people from different religious traditions or whatever. And a lot of them, that crisis event is exactly what they are seeking and need. And we talk about Pentecostalism's exploding globally because of one massive thing is its social mobility. It helps people go from poverty to middle class. Why? Because there's a sense of spirit empowerment. There's a sense of an abundance that God wants us to live into. And if you are in a midst of crisis, in the midst of that terror, then that is the message that God is very probably speaking to you in that moment. And so what about if you have it all? Then are those things just making you bloated? Are those things just, adding on? And I think that might be the social context that you found yourself in, Chris. And that many people do. It's like no, this isn't, I need, we're beyond Moses. We're to Aaron. We're towards this liturgical set of setting a tradition that we can actually thrive and grow in and become the blessing to the rest of the world, the rest of our society and in our city that we're going in. The Reformed church that I visited, that is huge emphasis on serving the city, on being witnesses in the city. Whereas Pentecostals, they don't have that much because a lot of times they're the ones who need to be broken. They need to have that crisis event happen for themselves. Like they are out of it. They're the alcoholic that came in stumbling through the door and then God delivered them dramatically. Like how many times have we heard that story, right? And so
right.
those are the things that like I think the importance of why and this is what I will preach constantly is like both are absolutely fundamentally needed in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I agree. We couldn't agree more on that. And I think one of the problems is like just how we categorize it for thinking and practice. So like let me give an example from Pentecostal doctrine. So like if you look at Pentecostal denominations and movements, their statements of faith, like they have mashed up together statements that are kind of classically Christian, creedal, that God is not all Pentecostals are Trinitarian, but many of these denominations have, they'll have a statement about God as Trinity, about Christ as divine and human, statement about Scripture. But then that will be tied up with like what we call their distinctives. So sanctification is second definite work of grace, or tongues is initial evidence, or the charismatic life, miracles and prophecies and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of smashed up there together when really there are many different forms of teaching that are all being put under the label of this is what we believe. So like if you study doctrine historically, like those things don't all belong in the category of doctrine. Like some of that is like pastoral counsel, some of that is spiritual direction, some of that is like sociological analysis,
Hmm.
and some of that is doctrine, right? And you've kind of like smashed them all up together. So
Yeah.
when you ask, like, what do Pentecostals believe, or what are the core beliefs for Pentecostals? It's very confusing if you're used to studying theology in a historical way,
Yeah.
because that's not like they don't think in those categories, and the way they are thinking like mashes category like a gumbo of categories,
Yeah.
Hmm.
right? Which once you know it, you can appreciate that for what it is, right? The
Hmm.
ways in which it's integrated, the ways in which they're not making a difference between what you believe and the way that you live. That can be wonderful, but it's maddening until you figure out that's what they're doing, right? It's even more maddening.
But a lot of contextual theology does that too. That does the exact thing, right? Like, and
Oh,
so
absolutely.
I think it's more of a reprimand against the old kind of German school of systematic,
Yeah.
right? Of just
Yeah. These are
like yeah.
It can be, although I do think there are legitimate differences between what we're going to say about the nature and character of God versus how we're going to advise people to respond to the fullness of the life of the Spirit. So
Hmm.
or what we're going to say about where on the timeline we think Jesus is coming back. Like I think we do need some categorical differences. I bring all that up to say, I think that a lot of what we've been talking about here today is what I would say is ministry. It's people ministering to the Lord or ministering to others, offering their love for God or their love for other people, a form of help
Hmm.
or a form of delight. But when we're talking about the church's worship, I think that's a categorically larger thing into which this fits.
Hmm.
Like these things fit inside of this, but we've reduced this to these things and then seen these things, the range of differences as a range of options.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, like offering these moments of crisis experience where people are being called to respond at the altar to God's demand on their life, the tent revival preaching,
Yeah.
that is ministry. It absolutely has its place in some form or another. It's needed.
Yep.
When we try to make that church, then all we're doing is, as you said a moment ago, we're replicating crises for people.
Yeah.
And that's not how you raise children in faith.
No.
That's not how you actually mature people into deep, Christian faithfulness. That's how you get people to come out of their darkness into the light. That's how you break addiction. That's how you free them from oppression of the enemy. That is essential. And if that's not happening, there are going to be people in bondage who never make the move to freedom. Like that's your point.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that, and all that music and worship and everything that we call worship fits inside of that. If we just could see how it fits in this larger frame, we'd see that a lot of this stuff is not at odds. They need each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
And as long as we can kind of recategorize into worship is this,
Yeah. Yep.
ministry fits inside that, expression fits inside of that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And most of what we've experienced, maybe not all of it, but most of it has its place. And we don't
Yeah.
have to reject it or get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're saying is that we've taken a facet of the ministry and of worship that we use and
Yes.
reduced that and made it kind of like or like
It's
made
the
that
whole
the thing.
diamond.
That's the whole
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yep.
And so, but I think also I completely agree with that. One mature way Pentecostals can go. I'm literally holding this thing up right now because it is falling so bad. Okay, so one way Pentecostals can grow in maturity and still even keep that revivalism is when they start seeing themselves as people on mission. So when your worship expression becomes like, "Hey, I've experienced this. Now I'm going to help others," and it becomes very giving, very kenotic, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're pouring out. Then you pour out to the cities again. The way a Reformed tradition would, the way an Anglican would. You would
Mhm.
do that. You do the same thing. You would be helping the poor and the needy and everything like that because you have already come on to the other side of that crisis event. The
Yeah.
Spirit already got you through that, right? And so, but then at the same time, if if we keep, but you can see where it turns people off if it is hey, you were broken last week. You were not broken enough. We're going to break you again. We're going to break you again. We're going to break you
Right.
again. We're
Yes.
going to break
Yes.
you again.
Right.
And it keeps going like that. It's just like, oh my gosh, it's this new, yeah, I mean, it's a new just version of fundamentalism that's just kind of coming back up in a different guise, right?
Yeah, you used this image earlier, Stephen, of the army, and I think that's such a good way of thinking about it. That the kind of Christianity that I grew up with is kind of like boot camp for the Marines, you know.
Yeah.
But at some point, you actually have to leave boot
You
camp,
got to go to
right?
the field.
You
Yeah.
got to go into the
Right.
field,
Yeah.
and we're really bad at that. Like we're
We
like
stay in boot camp. That's what we do.
we just cycle that over and over and over
That's good.
again, and it ends up. I mean, I think it fractures people in different ways. I mean, I think some people they stay sincere and they just keep getting broken. I think some people get really cynical about it. I
Yeah.
think some people are driven away. Other people just kind of break under the pressure. I don't think there's one response to it, but it is kind of crazy because it's not meant to, you can't live that form for long. Like it is, but you have to have it. Like without it, you're not going to be able to function in the field.
Right. Yep.
And so I couldn't, this is why for me, it's such a precious part of my life. I wouldn't be who I am without it.
Yeah.
But I don't want my kids to be stuck in that in the same way that I got stuck in it.
Right.
Right. Like it was vital for me. It still shapes me and vitalizes me. But I don't want to replicate it for my kids.
For sure.
Like
No,
I don't want to stage it for them.
I totally see that. You know, our church tradition, there's a lot of freedom in the Foursquare Church to kind of do your services and do church however you want to, like the service anyways. We do a weekly communion. You know, we do benedictions. We have like all these kind of my more formal liturgical things that you're talking about because it is the language. It is the language of like there, you know what it is? It's Pentecostals utilize a language of initiation perpetually,
Yeah.
but they're
We're
not
always beginning. We're
we're always
always beginning.
beginning, but they don't talk about the journey. They don't talk about that long part, you know, like so they're always baptizing people, but they're not doing communion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And another, this is coming up because of a pastoral situation I'm dealing with and thinking about. And that is like marriages that are always trying to stay in honeymoon stage.
Yeah. Yep.
Like at some point, like that has to be integrated into a more mature love life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And your love life has to fit inside of a larger family life.
Yeah.
And like you're more than your attraction for each other, not less, and that has to be vital. But if all of your energy is just trying to keep that kind of honeymoon, let's devour each other energy all the time,
Hmm.
like you're not going to have a stable home in which kids are safe and neighbors are welcome and strangers can be present at your table.
Yeah.
And like I think that in some ways the spirituality that I knew best was like that kind of energy. It's like doing everything it can to capture that and to stay there.
Yeah.
And again, long term, that's just unsustainable. Like it's not and unwise because it ends up at some point it becomes counterproductive. It actually
Yeah.
starts to work
Yeah.
against you.
Yeah. No, we're agreeing on everything, and I kind of knew we would. So to kind of like draw distinctions and about the beauties and the good stuff of contemporary worship and of liturgical worship, and you know, like I think talking the negative side, we see that as a negative side of contemporary worship is that it becomes all about the expression, and you know, we're an expressive tradition,
Mhm.
and when we start idolizing expression itself, you know, we get into idolatry in itself.
Yeah.
In the sacramental traditions, in the high church traditions, they can idolize the ritual themselves.
Absolutely
It
right.
can be all about that, and I knew you would agree with that too. But this is when good, you know, it can be rigid, over ritualized. Good. So the liturgical is good on communal expression and formation. The Pentecostal expression, the contemporary, is good with breakthrough and revivalism, good for community building, but not necessarily, you know, like the initiation part, the beginning part of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then the high church can lack personality or personal expression, maybe even personal accountability. Like you don't break at the altar is in the same way that you do,
Yes.
and that's something that can be lost. Does it need to be? Absolutely not. Anglican
Mhm.
churches can have that, and
Of course, yeah.
it's the marriage that keeps their date night, right? Like,
Mhm.
so
Yeah. Yes,
like yeah,
absolutely right.
like that kind of stuff. And then how mature are you, so that way you can keep your when in those moments of crisis, you can be ready for that. And then the same thing, a good healthy Pentecostal contemporary worship tradition can do the same thing. We can have those moments of longevity. We can, like, hey, we're going to actually recite a benediction every week. Like we're gonna do communion every week, or even if it's once a month, just like have the heart of whatever it is that you're doing,
Yeah.
and not letting it be ritualized, but knowing that, like, hey, we're seeing these forms every single week together as a community, and these things are deeply forming us to become the people that God is calling us to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, when it's all said and done, liturgical or contemporary worship? Yes. I mean, it's kind of how it goes. We
Put
can,
that on the t-shirt and sell
Yes,
it.
yes.
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 Um, it is all good. They all need parameters. They all need boundaries, just like everything. But yeah, it's good stuff. Is there any closing thought or anything you'd want to say to us? Because we've basically just kind of meshed all those questions together for the second
Beautiful.
half here. We
I
just,
You
don't
nailed it,
apologize.
actually.
Yeah,
which is great.
No,
yeah.
you nailed
No,
it. It's fun.
yeah.
So, closing remarks.
Oh, I thought he was asking you.
No, I want you to, yeah, you,
No,
Chris.
Chris, closing remarks.
I mean, I love what you just said. I think part of what I would encourage people who not just thinking about this in an abstract way, but feel personally affected by it, like people who are really, as we say, in the valley of decision about this kind of stuff. Like I would make a difference between what's the stuff that's ours to decide about, what's given,
Hmm.
then start wherever you are and go down into the roots from there. So, like, one of the things I would caution against, and this is a little bit off from any of the stuff we've discussed, but I think in terms of how God works in our lives, like it needs to remain organic and integrated. So I think it's a mistake to kind of jump from the tradition you were raised in, the people that actually taught you the faith, and then
Mhm.
just go pick a different tradition because it looks cool
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
YouTube or TikTok and try that out. Like I think the moves need to be more organic than that. Like who are the people that actually taught you the faith? Who are the people that you're walking with? So I'm thinking now, Dietrich Bonhoeffer comes here from Germany, his first time here in the US. He's a student at Union. He starts attending Abyssinian Baptist Church with one of his classmates at Union, and that becomes his introduction into the, Black Baptist, Black Pentecostal tradition. And he sees, oh, American Christianity doesn't reduce to what I see in these kind of mainline churches in Philadelphia and New York.
Mm.
But that happened organically for him, right? Like out
Hmm.
of that friendship or those friendships, he kind of finds his way into a different space
Yeah.
and starts to realize, oh, there's more here. And
Hmm.
I think that it's important, like when we're talking about something like this, like let it let it take the time it needs to take, let it develop organically. Don't think of this as an experiment in different styles you might try. Or if you are, recognize that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you're just thinking about it in those ways because you're interested, just know that that's what it is. But if
Hmm.
you feel something is at stake for you, like start close at home. Start with who it is that God had you learn the faith from first
Yeah.
Yeah.
and learn that deeply,
That's
right? And
good.
that's why for me, like becoming Anglican is not departing from what I was given as a
Let's
kid. Like
going deeper.
I'm deepening it, and
Yeah.
it's deepening in me. To
Yeah.
quote Rich Mullins about when his song about the creed, like I'm not making it, it's making me. Like that's what you're looking for. Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
how do I get in touch with the stuff that's actually forming my soul
Yeah.
and nurturing me, not stuff that I made up because I like it.
That's good.
It's good.
I would say from my purview and yours too, and I do think that we have, slightly different approaches in calling and ministry, and even though we do similar things, we do pastoral work,
Yeah.
and we're both theologians. But like one thing that has always been big for me is to be prophetic and to reform things.
Mhm.
And so that, and I'm just saying that, like, the legitimacy of going, hey, I'm actually going to leave that. I'm going to go deeper into what it is, and this is a natural movement for me. And then the other thing of like from my position is like, hey, this is not right. I'm gonna go make this right in this tradition. There's those are two very
Yes.
significant and important callings that are
Yes.
slightly different. And anybody listening, they might find themselves along those lines, you know, of
Yeah, that's
whatever
good.
it is. And I think that's perfectly permissible and fine and good and godly, either way. So yeah, I think because I think some people would say like they would take your view almost like the if somebody's speaking negative about it is like, oh well, he abandoned us or whatever, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't, and you never stopped being Pentecostal. I think you
Right.
took it very very, you know, deep, generous approach, and you still speak generously about your upbringing.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, for me, I've always had like a rebellious bent in my entire life. I mean, I think that's my artistry. Like literally,
Mhm.
that's like how
Yeah.
I always do that. But I do think that's also God given, which
Yes.
might sound weird for people, but I do think it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when this is moved in the right way, um, God can help us identify those things that aren't right, and then speak truth into them or life into
I
them,
love
right?
that.
And so I think, but that's also why I love working with a guy like Chris, because we're not doing the exact same thing,
Yeah.
Right.
though we're on the same team and work moving the same way. And that's the beauty of, I think, church community,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for
So
that,
good.
Stephen. Really well done. Really well said.
I think for me, as just as much a listener of this as our friends who are listening to this, my favorite part of that second half of that conversation was when we talk about bridge building, when we talk about the highs and lows and strengths and weaknesses of both sides. I loved kind of the conversation around contemporary worship. It's okay to set like a space. It's okay to set a vibe. It's okay to be emotional in the presence of the Lord. That innately doesn't mean you're being manipulated. It
Right.
doesn't mean that like, oh, the church is taking advantage of you. It wants to get you into a space so they can ask for your money or your
Right,
time.
right,
Right. That
right.
kind of stuff.
That's possible,
Which
but it's
that
not
does
innate.
happen, but it's not innate.
And not even
Exactly.
typical, I would say.
No, I haven't been. And granted, I know that there's lots of expressions, but I would hope that that's not
But
typical.
there's millions of people worshiping every single week.
Yes.
And so to think all of them are being manipulated is crazy. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
Not
There
my
are-
favorite.
There are those that are for sure, and that is
Wrong.
terrible. and
Yeah.
wrong. But yeah, there's nothing innately just for artists being good at being artists. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah. It's okay to play with excellence and set a good room because you are talented at the stuff that you do.
Right.
But I also loved how Chris could talk about engaging in sacraments, engaging in things like communion, engaging in things like that. And that has such a place and a value. And we see those things in scripture. And how those two things can work together, actually. Like they are not innately counter each other. They're not, you know, they can coexist. And oftentimes I think they should.
Yeah,
We should
absolutely.
have these, you know, really beautiful, emotional, excellent worship sessions with contemporary music. And then you can do things like say prayers and read scripture and take communion. And those things actually go together far more than they
Absolutely.
are opposing each other.
In that contemplative space where we're just
Yeah.
like leaving room for God to speak us in the quiet space and not
Yeah.
just like yelling. But also, hey, let's yell.
Let's yell and dance before the Lord, but also we can sit and we can reflect.
Right.
And there's room for both. And so I loved hearing both of you guys share your hearts and then be able to cross those bridges and be like, hey, wait a second.
Yeah.
These things can not only can be friends,
Mm-hmm.
should be friends, and we can take a beat from each other's side of the fence and be better worshipers for it.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, Chris and I both have like clearly seeing with clear eyes the dangers in both. Like
Yeah.
there is the worshiping of emotion itself,
Yeah.
the experience itself, and that becomes an idolatry.
Yeah.
Or the worship of the sacrament itself, the rituals themselves, and that becomes an idolatry.
Yeah.
But just because doing it wrongly becomes an idolatry doesn't mean you don't do it.
Yeah.
and like each side has repudiated the other because they saw the wrongness of the other.
Yep.
But they didn't see the rightness. So let's double down on the rightness of it, right?
Yeah, it's great.
And worship God fully.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was a great conversation. Love that guy. So
So
hopefully-
good.
Hopefully it bless you guys. But until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.
Hi, friends. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please go ahead and like, subscribe, share the podcast wherever you get it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and spread the word about TikTok Theology.
The best way you can help us is actually by sharing the episode. If you liked it and you know someone that would benefit from it, please share it with them. Our heart is to help people navigate these difficult issues in these really hard times.